Today we're going to talk about some of the complexities that we've been facing with some of the modern technologies you have on vehicles. There's been a lot of recalls, and if you're a vehicle owner and you drive one of these vehicles that have all of some modern technologies like electronic steering, for instance, if you drive a vehicle that uses electronic steering, there is just one way to identify it. Put on the ignition before you start up. There will be a PS light or EPS light. The EPS tells you that you have an electronic steering. It means electronic power steering. PS, power steering. Now, if you have that light coming on your vehicle, you could have a steering problem. But there are some cars that would not show that light, and all of a sudden the steering starts having problems. One of the popular problems we've been having with electronic steering lately is over time the motor you have inside, because it's actually built with motor and gears, starts having so much clearance, excessive clearance inside, that when you're driving while steering at a slow movement of the steering wheel, you start hearing this knocking sound coming from the steering area. Now, this is something we've observed in not just one model, not one make, several makes and models across board, different manufacturers. Now, some manufacturers, they placed problems like this on recall. Some of them will not place it on recall. But it's left for you to find out if maybe this kind of problem is placed on recall, especially for those that while driving at some point you find out that your steering becomes so stiff and you are aware of the fact that you're using an electronic steering. An electronic steering system doesn't have an hydraulic pump, so there is no need for hydraulics, there is no need for power steering fluid. The steering becomes so stiff, so hard that you find it very hard to steer. That is a sign of a problem. Now, in order to find out what you really need to do about that, you can use the internet to check if your manufacturer placed such problem on a recall. For instance, we talked about, at the beginning of this program, we talked about the Ford recall on the power steering. That's from 2010 all the way up. They've been having a lot of power steering related issues as a result of a glitch in the steering system. Over time, while driving, it becomes stiff, and then when you work it, before you know it softens again. Now, this kind of thing can be very, very dangerous, especially when you're on high speed and all of a sudden the steering goes stiff on you can't steer the vehicle. So if you start observing problems like that, you might want to use the internet to check if your manufacturer placed such problem on recall. Now, maybe you will not be able to meet up with the recall demands and all that, but one thing you can do, you can be rest assured that once you change the steering, because apart from placing it on a recall, the manufacturer would also give you a new part number with which you can buy the latest part that has been updated, so you won't have that problem anymore. So you can use that piece of information to get the right part, because if you're not aware that such a thing is placed on recall, you might take it to your mechanic and he finds out that the steering is stiff. He changed the steering part. He goes to the market, still buy the same part number that has been placed on recall, installs it for you. After using it for a short while, you start having the same problem again. Instead of doing that, you need to get to know from the manufacturer what part number should I use to buy the next part that this problem has been corrected on. So this morning, that's what we're going to be talking about. If you use a vehicle that has any of those modern technology, you might want to be looking out for failures that the manufacturer has already observed and putting it on recall, or placing the technical service bulletin on it on how to correct such problems. All right.